Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about igniting the short squeeze, the share price expectations, price accelerations, and many more in this video. Now, firstly, we're taking a look at this. Half an hour after the bell, and we are at a 78% dark pool. So I just want to point everyone to the direction of why is AMC price down 545 today? Because instantly, after the few good days that we've had, the price discovery that we deserve, we saw AMC instantly get met with 77% dark pool volume, 2.5 million hidden or 2.6 million hidden, 214,000 hit the NYSE. Now, it obviously doesn't stop there. And just like we talked about, normally the off-exchange volume is the highest at the start of the day. And gradually, as it goes towards the end of the day, as we go through the day, you start to see that number decrease, but not for AMC, because we then see it at 81% a few hours after. So 25 million shares now of volume going to the off exchange and only 1.5 million hitting the NYSE. And so this is just to show you guys every time about what happens when AMC deserves the price discovery that it gets. When every time AMC shows even the slightest recovery, even the slightest bullishness from investors from what it should be, is then instantly met with all of the suppression that it's going on. And the reason why we know that this is happening, the reason why we know that this is manipulation, from this little thing, I feel like it's quite interesting, but it describes the situation that we are in for AMC right now. You can see retail trader, almost 90% of all AMC trades are being sent to dark pools. The financial expert says that's their fault for using a brokerage account which doesn't send trades to a lit exchange. The retail trader then responds with, but why are all the HYMC buys going straight to lit on those same brokerages by the same people also buying AMC? Financial expert, stop whining that you lost money buying the dying movie theater company. Now, it obviously goes on, but I think it explains the point here. And I just want to highlight that this is just a made up thing, but it shows what actually goes on. There's no real conversation between a retail trader and a financial expert, but this is essentially what happens with AMC. When we take a look at everything else, we know that the dark pool, we know that the manipulation is obviously going on. And I think that I saw this and I think that this is true because Nvidia would trade at $2 if the same market shenanigans happening with AMC are happening with it. Long story short, market makers drive and fix the price of assets one way or another. That's why a blow up to the financial system is the only way to expose people swimming naked. And I completely agree with this because whilst a lot of people said that there is dark pool usage for all other stocks as well, which I completely agree with, none to the extent of AMC, to the extent of GME. And if Nvidia during its early days were to experience 80% and higher dark pool volume, it would be nowhere near the price it's at right now because it would never had the chance to see real price discovery. But then not only that, it's if Nvidia were faced with billions of tokens, if crypto companies offered tokens of these shares, if we're seeing these $100 billion swap positions that are not being reset, that are not being settled, and it's being hidden and bankrupting companies, if these were to exist for Nvidia, it would be trading at the same price. And so that's why we have to realize about what's going on, because whilst there is suppression for HYMC, you will still see that HYMC is going up, and as it should, because the silver market, because the gold market. And you can see how that silver market and gold market going up affects the price of HYMC, just like how box office would typically affect the price of the companies within that industry. Now, when it's bought by the same people, because the apes who bought AMC have also bought HYMC, you don't see that much manipulation happen to HYMC. You still see the short, but you don't see the dark pool usage. And for AMC, just like we've said, the box office going up would normally dictate that AMC goes up along with it. We've seen this with Cinemark, or we've seen that with IMAX, yet it doesn't happen to AMC because of the dark pool, and of course many, many more as well. And so we have to realize about why every time we see even the slightest movement in AMC, we are then met with suppression. And this goes on to something we talked about before. The bigger the retaliation from these institutions, it just highlights how big the situation is and how much money is at stake here. Now, one of the things being mentioned is about Ryan Cohen. Now, I want you guys to take this with a grain of salt and of course go check this out for yourself as well. But you can see Porsche took about 3 years to make the Volkswagen squeeze. Kohrs is going on year 2 now with AMC, but the option just showed on a massive $2 calls, so I think we are very close. So there's talks about Kohrs and buying the calls of AMC and essentially bring AMC and GME together to obviously then bring the squeeze. And we talked about yesterday in terms of the digital collapse between AMC and GME. So there are, of course, so many things happening right now. And we talked about recently as well about the call options going, a very volatile for AMC. And every time we see that this is happening, every time we see in terms of the call options increasing, the volatility, the volume, and we see the price of AMC going up, we know that something is going on. And we know is that if we were then able to continue and increase on top of the volume that's already there, we are able to push shorts. We are able to put shorts in a very, very bad position. We are able to cause them to lose a lot of amount of money. And we've done this plenty of times in the past before. We've seen how shorts had to pay up hundreds of millions, had to pay up billions of dollars because of these things. And right now, we could potentially be in that same position. But like I said, this is something that could just be a theory. This is something we're definitely seeing in terms of the call options that we are seeing, but there is no complete correlation, 100% confirmation that it's between a collaboration and then the call options. Like, we don't know if it's a complete play made by Ryan Cohen. We're saying that it could obviously happen. And so another thing to look at is from Joshua Sky. Now, we talked about this as well with the share price expectations. Everyone has different prices. And we talked about how all of the prices that have been mentioned in the past before are completely logical. It's something that has very high possibility because of what we have seen in the past. And now from Joshua Sky, who says, if you're expecting at least $5,000 to $10,000 per share during AMC squeeze before the reverse split, that now is equivalent to $50,000 to $100,000 per share. We've been here 5 years. We're not here to sell. We're not here to play. We'll wait as long as it takes. $100,000 per share is no joke. Now, I have always said this, and I want to highlight this again, is that by no means should you be listening to me or anyone else about the price you want to exit at. Everyone has different exit prices, and we know that that is completely normal. And what we have to realize is that you need to at the very least know what your share price is worth. Maybe your expectation isn't like somebody else's, but you should still know about everything that's going on. Make sure you understand all of the manipulations. Make sure you understand all of the suppression that's been happening. Make sure you know about all the tokens, synthetics, FTDs, the swaps, all of these things that are out there, and then come to a conclusion of where you think the price should be. But like I said, the price can be anywhere. We've already talked about this. We talked about how even without a squeeze, even with excluding a squeeze, AMC should already be in the hundreds right now when we talk about real price discovery. Then when we talk about a squeeze, we talk about everything that happens. If we talk about the complete synthetics, swaps, tokens, FTDs that needs to be settled, that needs to be covered, we see it in the thousands and even tens of thousands. And so once again, this is what I've said with have your own price, but make sure you understand exactly what's going on. Another big thing is Michael Burry says his GME part 2 piece is done and will likely publish Monday morning. Now, we've talked about this in the past before in terms of about what Michael Burry has obviously exposed. And he talked about how at times like this, and in terms of what happened back in 2021, was of course, if the volume gets too much and they can't reset everything, they can't rehypothecate shares, that's when things go wrong. And so right now with everything that's going on as well, and I'm definitely going to watch his what he posted as well, but in terms of everything that's going on with the market, with the volume, if we are able to see massive volume coming in again, but on both sides, firstly, we're talking about the margin calls from the silver side, from the Japanese yen, and then also the volume on AMC and GME, that's when we'll see things obviously happening. Now, the reason why I mentioned the other market and not just AMC and GME is because of everything that's going on. Firstly, we have there's 203 trillion in derivatives held by Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and other top banks causing an everything bubble. For those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you'll know one of the things we talked about is these synthetic, these derivative positions owned by these massive banks, and they are once in the trillions. And we talked about how if this were to blow up, it obviously would cause a massive uproar, and that's what they're trying to prevent every single day. But now, with how the silver market is going, it could potentially be the very end of that. Firstly, we see silver reaching $100 for the first time in history. So silver has obviously been making history almost every single day now for the past few days. We've seen it reaching all-time high, and we're only going to continue seeing the price of silver going up. And now that's a very good thing for us. Just like I said at the very start, a lot of apes have bought into HYMC, but even if you didn't buy into HYMC, if you hold AMC, you're still benefiting from HYMC because that will reflect in the investment, that will reflect in the earnings of AMC. Now, what we have to realize is that firstly, HYMC is also seeing massive calls option, is seeing massive volume. Now, that's already a big thing. We're seeing gamma squeezing happen in multiple different areas right now. And what we could see is also another gamma squeeze in HYMC that could bring it up, along with the fact that people are just investing in miners. Another thing talking about that is talking about how we're seeing the CEO talking about silver crossing 100 for the third time and gold near 5,000. The flight to hard asset accelerates. Now, this is essentially her talking about the demand is for this is still obviously going up. And if we're seeing the demand for gold and silver to go up, we're going to be seeing the demand for high growth to go up as well. Today, high growth has already ended up being up 8.59%, and this is off of the back of multiple double-digit dates for HYMC. So this is very, very good. And then on top of that, we're talking about one of the biggest short sellers in the silver market right now, and against these junior miners as well, against these companies like HYMC are actually banks. And I think a big thing is that a lot of people are going to sell $100 and some will even try to short, but that's the fuel to break through $100 and ignite a short squeeze and or intense FOMO. And so as we see silver go up to $100, firstly, it is a very big psychological levels. For those of you who day trade, you'll know that whole levels are psychological, and prices like $100 is an extreme psychological area. But I definitely think at times like this will be extreme volume. Now, we've already seen what has happened to these short sellers in the past before. So I definitely think we're going to see another surge of volume coming in. Because on top of that, what we're looking at is how banks are trying to cap silver at the current level. It's because they're trying to prevent SRV from breaking $90, because another big chunk of call option goes in the money, it will ignite the ongoing gamma squeeze, which is worsening the short squeeze even more. Now remember, the people who are being affected by the gamma squeeze, by the short squeeze, the ones who will lose money are the very banks that are supplying the institutions to short AMC. So if we're seeing them getting burnt out in these positions, we're going to be seeing how these institutions will fail to get money and they will fail to actually suppress AMC because of illiquidity problems. And you can see if SLV breaks $90, another big chunk will ignite the ongoing gamma squeeze. And that's something that we obviously have to understand in terms of the fact that we are seeing iShares Silver Trust already at $90. It's just about if we can stay there in terms of going in the money. Another big reason for the silver price going up right now is in terms of the silver prices in Shanghai, currently $110.5 per ounce. The premium versus COMEX is increasing to $12, which is a big thing, because we talked about how this is the leading indicator. But then not only that, is that we're showing some of the different prices in different areas. You can see in Japan, 145, UAE, 165, China, 140. If you're wondering why there's a difference between what we talked about here, 110.5 versus 140, is that this is not including VAT and this is including VAT. Now, we would use the premium of this, but you can also use the premium of this. It's just that if you used the premium for VAT, you need to always keep it VAT. If you use the premium without the VAT, you need to always use the premium without VAT. That's just a very simple thing, but that's obviously what's happening. We know that the premium is increasing, so evidently we're going to still continuously be seeing the price of silver go up. Another thing is how the Japanese government just pulled the trigger and is now actively intervening in the FX market, selling treasuries to fetch USD, to then dump to buy and strengthen the Japanese yen. So we talked about this worrying problem, and we're seeing this happening. And just like we've said, is that they don't want the whole market to crash. But if they don't actively help, we are just seeing them throwing, sand into an endless pit right now and hoping that they can fill it up. But it feels like the moment they stop trying, they stop intervening, we're just going to see everything crumble. Now, as always, this is financial advice. Do take advice with a grain of salt. Make sure you do your own due diligence and research, and I'll catch you guys next time.